Hello, this is Captain Aquarius, doing business again as Dan First, coming to you with another one of the brief 15-minute videos about the major lunations during the transformational years of 2016 and 2017. This one is coming to you from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which is where I'm about to do the last of the events on the USA leg of my Maps of Power tour at the Radiance store, and to be followed there at Radiance, this wonderful place, by a full moon intentional ceremony on Saturday, February the 11th. Anyone who wants information about the events on this tour, which will soon go to Egypt, then to Ireland, France, Germany, and so on, can look at the events page at danfirst.com. The events panel is the one in the lower part of the home page to the right. So, to begin presenting this full moon and this chart to you, as you know already very likely, this is the full moon when a lunar eclipse occurs. Oh boy, it's going to be in the sign of Leo. You can tell by looking at this chart that the full moon is in effect because the moon in the 7th house is exactly opposite to the Aquarius sun in the 1st house. There are, of course, many interpretations of an eclipse, most of them rather dire in their significance. I have my doubts about this. I believe that eclipses, like everything else that manifests in the physical universe, is largely a hologram of human consciousness. And this one has its significance now, as we will see the red moon at the lunar eclipse in the sky at this time, that what we are looking at here in particular is the significance of the Leo-Aquarius polarity. Leo is the sign of the leader, the king, the person who insists on the one-up position in relationships and is uncomfortable with positions of equality, versus Aquarius, which is the revolutionary sign, which tends toward equality and synarchy in relationships. So there is a natural tension always between these, but it is especially exacerbated now as the Leo moon is indeed exacerbated by the conditions of the time in various parts of the world. We are not going to talk immediately about the United States. There is always time for this ongoing reality TV show. We're focusing in this chart on the conditions that apply at this full moon in Mumbai, India, which is actually the commercial and economic center of the country, because this is a time when India is very much in turmoil, as you know, in the political, economic, and emotional realms as the result of actions that are being taken to create a cashless economy in India. The idea being, as it's being presented officially, that withdrawing 200 and 500 rupee notes from circulation is really going to make it hard for petty criminals to operate, when what is happening, as always, is that the major criminals are doing whatever they want to do with the usual impunity. The point of the whole thing is that India has somehow acquiesced into being the stalking horse, or whatever other animal metaphor applies, for the country that is first to make a major move in the direction of having an economy consisting entirely of digital transactions rather than cash transactions, so that everything we do in terms of receiving, sending money is going to be monitored and ultimately regulated and controlled by a computerized banking system. So if you want your money to be controlled by the banksters, well, a cashless economy is a marvelous idea. If you want to have it happen that the penalty that you endure for having expressed dissent or somehow in another way objected to the agendas of control is that they can simply cut you off. Well, then by all means support a cashless economy. How is it that we see this particular delusion and deception going on in this particular chart? It's cast for 6:03 a.m. in Mumbai, India, on February the 11th. So the same chart is basically in effect in the earlier hours of the morning for places to the west of this in the Eurasian landmass, and the same full moon is in effect on the other side of the Atlantic in the late hours in the evening of February 10th. The second house of money is crucial here because so much of the deception and trickery, so much of the reptilian archon agenda of harvesting people's fear, which is in fact the archon's nourishment, has to do with instilling in people the idea that their money is about to vanish. They're going to starve. They're going to be unable to support their families. How does this show here? Well, we can see it pretty stressfully. Venus and Mars are in a near conjunction in the second house, and one does not have to be the famous legendary dean of American astrologers, Mark Edmund Jones, to recognize this as the classic combination that favors or tends to coincide with at least precipitate action, which, as precipitate action often does, will tend to have disadvantageous consequences. What else is in this house? Oh boy, the planet Chiron the healer is here at 22 degrees of Pisces, indicating the possibility of both healing and wounding where money matters are concerned, and the likelihood of some kind of difficulty is increased by the fact that Chiron is in a 90-degree square with the planet Saturn up there in the 11th house, the house of friendship, community, social activity, social activism. This is likely to indicate that there are going to be some people who are taking, as we are going to see, not so much in this aspect, in another one we're going to look at soon, some people will be taking inordinate risks while other people are going to be very, very cautious about committing their money to anything with the predictable results on the condition of the economy. The other planet that is here, oh boy, is Neptune, who's in the second house of your money. Whatever house this planet is the one where deception is most likely to occur. Is there a great deal of deception going on where money matters are concerned? Yes, indeed, as we've known all through this video series, which actually began in March of last year. And so we can see that there is an enormous amount of energy located here in the second house of the chart, also the first house of the chart. But what we're going to look at here in particular is a classic illustration of the usual premise that every chart has in it. Very likely conditions of limitation and difficulty. It also has within it conditions of advantage if we can only see them and use them. The difficulty that we are aware of, you see, is that the fear propaganda is just relentless. The distraction, the deception, the propaganda, the lying, so that, good heavens, most people have no idea where to move if they're able to move at all, and they are isolated from each other because the effect of fear is dividing, while the effect of love naturally is uniting. So we're going to look at the particular conditions that apply here. Look at the third house where Uranus, the revolutionary, the bringer of change, is in opposition to Jupiter, the government, the bank, the law, the institutions of authority up there in the ninth house. Also, Jupiter rules publication and all kinds of dissemination of information by all kinds of media. So if these two are in opposition, guess what happens? When they're well aligned with each other, things are basically lucky and fortunate and profitable. People realize good financial advantages. They attract excellent opportunities. When the two are in opposition, oh boy, different conditions apply, because this is a time when speculation is not favored, when opportunities that seem to be true and valuable turn out to be flashes in the pan, and woe to those who invest in things that have a way of vanishing right out from under them under the influence of Uranus, the trickster and the wizard and magician, along with the bringer of change. This is especially likely, this set of somewhat difficult conditions, because if you look over in the 12th house, Pluto is there. He is in a square to Uranus, a strong square at an orb of a little over 3 degrees, and a somewhat less powerful square to Jupiter up there in the ninth, you see. So this is the alignment that astrologers call a T-cross, because you have two planets opposite to each other, a third planet at the 90-degree point between them. What is going on here, naturally, is that arrangements of espionage, encryptation, the cyber war, the endless competition between major political and national and commercial rivals on the planet is happening furiously now, but it is hidden in the 12th house of secrets and shadows. Bear in mind that the house positions are less relevant here, because of course they're going to change with other locations on the planet. These apply mainly to the environment of Mumbai, India, and other places that are on the same meridian with it. But the point is nevertheless the case. When Jupiter and Pluto are well aligned, we conceive large, ambitious plans that have wonderful possibilities of being successfully and happily realized. When Jupiter and Pluto are in a 90-degree square, the angle of disharmonious tension, we are likely either not to be able to think big at all, or to think negatively about limitations and difficulties, or if we are able to think big, we will tend to overestimate our possibilities and make moves that turn out to be calamitous. When Pluto and Uranus are in a favorable combination, it is wonderful. We can affect all kinds of changes in a harmonious way, because the agent of death and regeneration, which is Pluto, and the revolutionary, which is Uranus, are harmoniously aligned. But if they're aligned in the 90-degree angle of the square, oh boy, things are likely to be a good deal less harmonious. There is going to be a certain amount of turbulence, and there is going to be no accepting of responsibility whatsoever by those who have actually caused the situation. Now, however, look at the other set of conditions. Uranus in the third house, the revolutionary, is the pivotal player, because he is in a 120-degree angle to the Leo moon over in the seventh house of partnership and relationship, and also to Saturn in the 11th house of friends and community. This kind of relationship, in which three planets form an equilateral triangle with each other, is called a grand trine, and is considered by some to be the most harmonious and powerful of all planet combinations. It is, if not the most powerful, at least a combination that tends to be restful, that tends to produce stability, rather than turbulence and action and difficulty. And so, therefore, the ability to coordinate the emotional development of the moon, the entertaining trickery and magic of Uranus, electronic technologies as well in the third house, and the discipline of Saturn the teacher in the 11th house is really wonderful during this particular aspect. All kinds of things are waiting for us to create them. Let us get busy, get imaginative, get motivated by the frequency of love.